Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180 for the absolute best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock and on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock Saturday, and for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay, and behind the big board is Greg Held, our producer. Hey, Clay, that was a great show last week with Dr. Jeff Victor from Summit College and Andrew Barling from Stockdale Learning Center.
You know, I'm glad you remembered my name.
Your name?
It took you a second.
My name, Jose Jimenez. It was a pretty good program.
After 3 years, you finally remembered who you're with.
Yeah, it's been a long morning already. Today we've got a very, very special show, one I've been looking forward to. In the second half, we have Jennifer Pritchard from Current Citizens for Sustainable Government to talk about pension reform. That's a loaded subject right now. And prison realignment in California. But our first guest is a gentleman that I had the pleasure of working with when I was part of Christian Coalition over 20 years ago. He was running for senator against Barbara Boxer. That's a familiar theme lately. He was a deputy special assistant to President Nixon. He worked with Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He was part of the Reagan transition team. And he was a commentator that I really enjoyed on KABC TV and radio in Los Angeles. Now he's the author of a great new book, Obama's Globe, A President's Abandonment of U.S. Allies Around the World. Our guest, Bruce Herschensohn. Bruce, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Thanks. Good to hear your voice again. Great, Marty.
Bruce, I was trying to think this morning. The last time I saw you, I think, was at a fundraiser with Babe Buchanan at somebody's private residence in Woodland Hills about 20 years ago.
My gosh. That 20 years ago would be exactly right. Yeah,
Boy.
that was 92.
Before we get into your book, which I think is fantastic, what do you think about the state of our state and how the Democrats are doing as far as running it?
Not well at all. Let me just tell you, Marty, that I haven't been involved in California state politics too much. It's all been national and generally foreign policy for the past God knows how many decades, since the 60s. So that's really my concentration more than anything else.
Has been on the foreign rather than the domestic.
Well, I've been on domestic, both foreign and domestic, but mainly foreign policy for a long, long time now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that shows in your book. That's an excellent book.
Thank you so much.
It's a little bit scary, looking at what's happened. We had Dick Morris on not too long ago, and his book, Screwed, talks about some of the same things that you elaborate on in your book, and it's frightening what this guy's doing.
Yeah, it is. It really is an abandonment of our allies, and at a time, first, you don't even do it during peacetime, but this isn't peacetime. We're in a war. And you do not abandon or even threaten allies at a time of war, and we're in a war, and we don't seem to act as though we're in a war. And I'm convinced that if President Obama should win a second term, that it will be. I don't know if it'll be able to be fixed very easily after that term is over. I don't even know if it's going to be fixed easily. It certainly won't be easily if he should lose this time.
Why do you think he is abandoning our allies?
I don't know. I never go into the psychology of it or try to psychoanalyze in any way, and I'm sure you noticed in the book I don't touch that kind of thing. I just tell absolute facts, and if I can't back them up, I don't put them in the book.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that what you've done there is you're not doing a lot of opinion in the book. You're talking mostly about facts and what's actually happened. Before we get into the book, I want to ask you a question about the campaigns that are going on right now. And I don't want to elaborate too much on this, but I remember during your campaign, you were on the short end of some really dirty campaigning. And do you see that going on now? I mean,
it's gotten much worse since my campaign. I didn't expect that kind of thing, but you should always expect that kind of thing. I am very concerned about some what's called an October surprise, or even a real early November surprise. What they generally have tried to do is if they find that they're losing or even in danger of losing, where the polls don't look that good for them, they'll spring something right at the end, and it doesn't make any difference if it's true or untrue. They put the candidate and the campaign on the defensive. Once you're on the defensive, it is very, very difficult, if not impossible, to stay on the offensive, because the press is naturally there at all your closing events, and they will ask you about whatever charge may have been made. And as I say, it doesn't really make much difference if it's true or untrue.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened to you, so many years ago, and I can see it happening again.
Sure.
Unfortunately,
it's happened since too.
Sure.
To other candidates. I mean, it has become. Look, it used to be that opposition research meant that you had someone who looked up the other person's record on what they voted for or what they advocated, and that was opposition research. Now it's a private detective, and if they don't find anything, they'll make it up at the end. It depends on how the campaign is going.
Mm-hmm. Our guest by phone, former senatorial candidate and author of Obama's Globe, Bruce Herschensohn.
Bruce, do you think do you think both parties tell untruths?
No, I don't. I really don't find. I really find that this is something that comes generally from Democrats. I mean, it may be an occasional person who tries to unload something in the Republican Party that isn't true, or that is has maybe a grain of truth to it, and then the person is on the defensive immediately. But either way, I really haven't found that to be true generally among Republicans trying to do that to Democrats. I have found that to be true so often with Democrats to try to prosecute or persecute a Republican.
Well, by keeping the Republicans on the defensive, it certainly takes away from the issues.
Sure, it does. I mean, right now, regarding the taxes with Governor Romney and all of the kind of outrageous comments about causing the death of a woman. I mean, all of those things are just outrageous. But it puts the guy on the defensive. It puts the campaign on the defensive. And they usually save some big one that they have, which, as I said, may be true or untrue. It doesn't make much difference.
Well, that's been Obama's presidency, hasn't it?
Yeah, I have to say that it's been the party's tendency for the past 20-some years, even before then, probably. I just didn't pay that much attention to it before then.
Well, he didn't have sex with that woman.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, it goes on and on with those people, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I shouldn't laugh at that one, but
No.
Bruce, I often wonder what a difference we'd have here in California had you been elected, and either Seymour or Bill Dannemeyer at that time, and had the two of you in there instead of Boxer and Feinstein. That would have been a little bit of a different California today than we're looking at right now.
Or at
Well,
least one
thank
of them.
you. And in those cases with the Senate, it really is because it's national. It has. It's not just California. It isn't the California State Senate. It's the U.S. Senate.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly, if Bill Dannemeyer was in there or John Seymour, I do believe it would be tremendously different.
You know what I find interesting? I believe Harry Reid is a Mormon,
Mm-hmm.
and they criticize Romney because of his religion, yet nothing's ever said about Harry Reid.
Well, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be said about Harry Reid. It shouldn't be said about George Romney. Mitt Romney. And now I am showing my age. I think I keep on saying George Romney because I knew the guy. I don't know Mitt Romney.
That's right. That's right, governor of Michigan, yeah.
Right. So it is good Lord, after John Kennedy, who, although obviously I was for Richard Nixon at the time, and remained, as you well know, very, very high on President Nixon, probably the foremost genius of foreign policy in our time. But President Kennedy was extremely good, particularly on foreign policy. The guy was excellent, and regardless of what anyone may think of him, he certainly wasn't listening to the Pope which was the accusation at the time that he would be. And I thought we were done with that kind of prejudice and that kind of bias against a person's religion.
You know, when we come back from the break, I want to talk obviously about your book, but I also have a Nixon question that I've been wondering about, and you're probably the perfect person to ask. So we'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.